guys, I think we're live. Let me make sure we've got audio. Maybe. Just a warning. Gibson's stomach is making some weird sounds, so if I have to run out and let him outside, that might happen tonight. Let's see. There's a very long lag here. Let's see if this is going. Come on. Oh my gosh, this is seriously a long lag. Just checking to make sure we've got audio, and then I'll get going. Yep, there we go. Okay, so tonight I actually put the wrong thing in the description and I need to change that. I'm actually working on, this is a Pro Series Dixie. This is Frederick's. I am sponsored by Frederick's just for transparency. They did provide me with this canvas. So this one is the Pro Series. I can get the label so you can see it. 12-ounce Dixie. Now the 12-ounce canvas, and if you're unfamiliar with canvases, the tooth makes a very big difference. Which type of tooth, how bumpy the canvas is an easier way to understand that, will make the style that you're going to be painting is going to determine the type of canvas you want to choose. Now this 12-ounce Dixie, super high tooth. It's a very heavyweight canvas, which is great for palette knives, for really thick, chunky paints. But in this case, the reason that we chose this canvas, and I don't know if you'll be able to really see it, it is extremely, the edges are really, really thick. It is a beautiful, just the shape. It's going to look so nice on the wall. It's 2.25 inches thick, which is a lot thicker than even your normal box canvases. So being that it did have more tooth than what I want for this, what I did is put 3 coats of gesso, let it dry completely in between each coat, and then I took it, I want to say it was 220, is that a grit? I don't know, some grit that's in the 200s, sandpaper, and I just lightly went over everything, and that brings it to a smooth enough canvas that it's very similar to working on, let's say, a Frederick's Blue Label canvas. So you can take, if you've got a canvas that has a heavier tooth, you do want to make sure that the initial canvas is quality. If you're using a canvas that has a crap primer in the first place, you know, the generics, looking at you, Hobby Lobby, some of those, they're fine for practice. But if you're using some of those, whether or not that canvas or the gesso is going to stick, you may have some issues there. And then, of course, the type of gesso you use. I am using Liquitex gesso for this. So, and again, letting it dry in between layers is very, very important. You don't want to start sanding anything down when it's somewhat wet still. So, got a couple questions. I did hit record already. Thank you very much. Hi, Carla. Yeah, I didn't want to miss out on that, so I hit record like 5 minutes early. That's going to be fun to edit later. Okay. Thanks, Ursies. Okay, so getting started on this guy. Now, the background color that I chose, the reason that I went with gray on this, it's supposed to be a bluish gray. I need to compare it in person with the gray that they use on their cabinets, but I've got a color swatch here depending on how the light's hitting it. It's pretty exact. The thing is, it's on black. And as you guys know, when you use paint, depending on how transparent that paint is or how opaque it is, that black having that dark background may impact what this color looks like. Some of that black may be coming through, and I'm not sure if that's exact. So what I may end up having to do on the background is doing a glaze later to correct for that if it's not quite what it's supposed to be. I'm going to be glazing oil over this anyway, so it's not a huge deal. I'd rather have it accurate now. We may or may not be close. I'll find out in a couple days. But that is the reason that I went with gray as a base. If you were doing a purple background, you could do the same thing. Leave the background purple. Now, the reason that I'm leaving the gray on the dog, even though he's a white dog, I'm going to let this grayish blue show through on his shadows. Whenever you're changing the background from what your reference photo is, you want to make sure you're pulling those background colors into your subject so it feels like it all goes together and you don't have something that just looks like it's cut out in Photoshop and stuck onto a different background. Good. Ann says the sound is okay. Thanks. Okay, so the next thing I want to bring up, when a lot of people will ask me, well, how do you color match? How do you get the exact color? And this is close. I don't know if it'll even show, but that little swatch right here, this is my color versus the color of the swatch I was given. Mine's slightly darker, which I needed, being that I was going to be putting the circles for the background, the bokeh background. Color matching does not happen because you read every book, watched every video, anything like that. You're going to learn color matching by painting, by experimenting, by making a horrible mess for a few years. That's normal. That's okay. But you have to start mixing color. A common thing that I get, people will complain that I don't tell you exactly what color I'm using. It's not going to help you. It doesn't even matter. The color's not that big of a deal. pick some colors, mix them together until you get the color you want. You're going to learn to color mix that way. That's how I'm able to take a color and make it exact to whatever it is that I'm matching, or really, really darn close. So that, if you are struggling with color matching, you just need to work with a smaller palette and learn to mix from there. That is how you're going to learn. You can read every book, you can watch every video. I'm not saying those can't help, but that's not how you're going to learn to color match, to color mix. You're going color mix to an extent, but color matching and being very accurate, that's just experiment or experience. You just need to paint more. Let's see. Yeah, he's really cute, Carla. Heather said, you have a video on blurred backgrounds without an airbrush, right? I hope I am remembering that right. I do. It's a little blue bird. You should be able to just do a search for acrylic or bokeh background, something like that. But there will be a blue bird with a little yellow head, I believe, for that one. But yes, I do have that. It's going to look a little bit different, but it still looks very cool. So you're good. I don't know if somebody is able to find it. Feel free to link it. Okay, so now painting. Now, my main focus tonight is going to be on the fur, but I do want to block in the eyes, and I'm not going to do a good job on the eyes. They're going to look a little scary tonight. That's totally normal. I just want to block those out so I don't lose their location. Even if I paint over them a little, I'll have the darks where they need to be. So I'm just going to go with this is a synthetic hog hair liner brush. This is one I get from Hobby Lobby. They're generics that I really, really like. So his fur has to go over the eyes in a lot of these areas. So it's going to look like these eyes are standing out way too much by the end of tonight. And that is normal. I'm mixing water to thin this out a bit. My dishwasher is louder than I thought it would be. So if you're hearing that, I apologize. I just keep adding a little bit more water. Now with the liner brush, and I do have a video showing you how to use a liner brush, just search Lachri and liner brush. I'm using water and I'm twisting that brush into the paint. I don't want thick chunks on there. I want to thin that out so that it flows nicely. I'm not going to worry about the highlight on his eye just yet. Now I'm mixing two different photos for his eyes because one of them, he had kind of a crazy eye going, more than this, what you're seeing now, but on the other side. So I'm using two photos, same angle or very close anyway. And most of this is going to be covered with fur. He's going to look a bit cross-eyed right now. That's okay. Wow, those are some crazy eyes. How not to paint eyes. No dishwasher sounds here. Okay, good. Meeg said, a colored pencil question. Is Colored Pencil magazine worth the read? Absolutely. That's the the only magazine I personally get is Colored Pencil magazine. Definitely a good read. I get the one with, oh, Gibson tonight is behind me painting Violet Skies. He's in his bed over here all curled up. But no, I get the digital copy of the magazine because I don't know why I'm mixing white. I don't need white. I don't like to store like books and stuff. I don't actually keep many books. If I can't get it digitally, I probably don't want it. So I get the digital copy and it's great because I always have those copies on my phone or well, I need to fix the app. But yeah, I definitely am a fan. Let's see. Tanya said, hello from Denmark. Time here is 3 in the morning. I set my alarm to see the live stream. Oh my gosh, you are dedicated. So I am mixing this. It's red oxide. Or is that what that one is? I get that one mixed up with the other one. Yeah, red oxide. And any of those reddish browns, you mix it with black and you're going to get kind of a chocolate brown. And that's what I'm doing here because my browns are all goopy and nasty and I need to replace them. So we'll just mix. Gives me what I need. Actually, I can probably go a little bit lighter. Let's pull a little of the gold in there. None of this, like I said, does not need to be perfect. We're just going for close. So I know I don't lose where the eyes are once the hair gets painted in. Oh, that's a bit too dark. Let's pull some more of the red and the golden color in there. Doesn't need to be perfect, but it could be a little better than that. There we go. Let's see. Buzz Art Tutorial said, any ideas for framing a gallery wrapped canvas 1.5 inch sides? I was quoted $350 to have it done, and I'm not trusted with a saw, so making my own is not an option. You're not supposed to frame that. Like, that's the amazingness of having a thicker canvas, is that you don't need to frame them. That's why you would choose a box, the 1.5 inch. The 3/4 inch, yes, frame. But when you get into those bigger, like the 1.5 inch or 2 1/4, this isn't supposed to be framed. That's one of the things that makes this canvas so awesome. And even though you're going to pay more initially for a canvas like this, you're saving money because you don't have to frame it. So I don't recommend framing that. You're kind of defeating the purpose of having chosen that canvas in the first place. These ones just hang on the wall as is. Not that you can't do that with a 3/4 inch, but those usually look better framed. Trisha said, what is the brand of transfer paper you use? I got some locally, but it's crummy. I use Low Cornell, which is funny because the only products from Low Cornell I like are their transfer paper and their paintbrushes. But the rest of the stuff I'm kind of meh on. But yeah, no, that's Low Cornell is the one that I use there. I've been really happy with it. I got some, I'm trying to think of the brand name. It was something I found at Hobby Lobby, and it was terrible. It was like, it wasn't waxy because the paint stuck to it, so it didn't actually have wax, but it just didn't work well at all. It was just terrible. There, his eyes are less scary now. Okay, let's see. We've got a white area. I'm just going to paint it white. I'll have to put shading in there later. But let's get the white of his eye just blocked in so I know where that goes. Okay, I am going to add the shine on the eye just a bit. I probably should let it wait longer. Yet I'm going to continue doing the thing I'm going to regret later. I don't learn. Okay, let's get that little bit of a shine over here. And I've mixed in some blue, that is cobalt blue, mixed some of that in with my white there. I want to make sure those are curved. And then I'll put the brightest highlight with some titanium white, and then we'll get started on the fur. Trisha said, yes, Hobby Lobby was where I got the transfer paper from. Yeah, I didn't like that. It didn't stick to the paper right. Like, it just wouldn't show up. And then even when it did, it didn't erase right. Definitely not a fan. Would not recommend. Okay. Now I can go ahead. Carla, he's sort of a commission. I did a trade for shiplap walls in my hallway, which I'll be posting photos of when that's all finished. It looks amazing. I'm so excited. It looks so good. I'll post photos of that when it's done, but I'm trading some paintings for some woodworking jobs. Works out really well. I love trades. Okay. So I can go back to just the one photo. Let me enlarge this. So what I'm going to do is use some unbleached titanium white, and I'm going to mix a little bit of my, what color is that? I can actually tell you the colors if I bother to look at them. Raw sienna. And I'm going to start blocking this in very, very loosely. Now, all of this is going to have oil paint on top. So what I'm going to do, where I normally would try to soften out the acrylic to make everything nice and really well blended, I don't need to do that now. I can be pretty sloppy, pretty lazy. There is a spot on my glasses that is driving me crazy. That's not going to get fixed anytime soon. I'm going to be a little bit more rough. I'm not going to worry about blending this because when I go on top with the oil, that's going to soften everything up. So it's actually better if things are a little bit more harsh now than what I want that end result to be, knowing that it's going to get softer. Because if I make this perfectly soft now, I have to be even more careful when I go on top with oil not to overdo the softness. Let's see. Miriam said, hi Lisa, I missed your answer on how you did the bokeh effect. That was done with an airbrush and a stencil, which I have lost, but it's just a stencil that you would get at like any art supply store over by the drafting section. Daniel said, can you give me advice on how to find out the value of certified paintings with authenticity certificate, one-of-a-kind originals, or who to contact for this matter, please? I would you can contact someone who does auctions. That may, and I don't mean eBay, I mean like actual runs an auction house. They can get an idea of what something would go for. I don't even know I mean, it's worth what people are willing to pay for it. And somebody, actually my doctor's office was asking me about that because she has some paintings that she said were very expensive and they are originals, but nobody knows how to sell them. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You can have something that's technically a value, but if no one will buy it, it's not of such high value. So it's finding those right places. My parents see stuff a lot at auctions, like nice auctions. That may be someone to ask, a way to look. A Google search of the artist and see how much their paintings are selling for on various websites and such. That may help. The certificate of authenticity, honestly, depending on what the painting is, they mean very little. I used to do those with my paintings. They're fun, but they don't actually add any value. So that doesn't mean a whole lot as long as you know the painting is original to that artist. Okay, so for this guy, I am going to be mixing some of the raw sienna with unbleached titanium white. Yeah, I don't know that I can't really help too much there because it's kind of a weird thing when it comes to art. It depends on who the artist is. Some artists will be well known with galleries and the gallery may take it on commission. So that may be someone to check with. Alicia said, what is a good colored pencil brand to start with? I already have Prismacolor. If you already have Prisma, you've got a wax base, I would go with an oil base. So I would either go with Derwent Lightfast or Faber-Castell Polychromos, which is like the highest oil content, I guess. So that will work really well with your Prismas. I would go with that. And I talk about how great Caran d'Ache luminants are, but you've already got Prismas. So if you're going to use those, your bigger change would be, or the most drastic difference would be with the Polychromos. So I would go with those. So I'm going to lay down some of the darker areas first. Now this photo, the reference photo I'm using, it came from wedding portraits, and wedding portraits tend to fuzz stuff and they highlight that soft, the whites, they make things really bright. So I'm going to be doing a little bit more than what I can see in the reference photo so that I can get some depth in this guy. Let's pull a little bit of the darks for his eye over here. That's a little bit too much water. Too thin, add more water, or more paint. So again, this can be a little bit darker because I will be lightening it up when I put the fur over a lot of it. Okay, again, I'm going to keep laying this down. And because I'm going to be going over with this with oils, I'm going to be doing a lot of glazing and tinting the color. So if this looks weird now, it's no big deal. I'm just kind of mapping stuff out and blocking things in. Like this area here, I know will need to be way darker, but I already have this color on my brush, so we'll just map it out now with that. Miriam said, I shared your channel with an artist friend of mine who just got her first commission of a dog. That's awesome. Make sure too that your questions are highlighting with that orange. If they don't, I usually won't see them. So the Lachri Fine Art, but I did see this one, so I can go ahead. Heather said, do you make your own certificates for certificates of authenticity for your work? I don't. I sort of used to. I used to use a company where you would register it online I forget how much I paid a month. I want to say it was like $10 a month or something, which back then was a lot of money for me. And I'm going somewhere with why this is stupid. So I used to pay this company and they kept track of everything from, like, there was a number for the certificate of authenticity. There was everything. And then they went out of business. So for years I paid them, and now for what? It's worthless. Absolutely worthless. Who are you getting it certified by? Like with comic books, they use a certain grading system and certain companies to grade those comics, and those have been around forever. But with certifying your artwork, I would never put money back into. I don't recommend it, and I would not have it certified. Again, what I started doing, and I was only doing that really for prints, not for the originals. But with that, I started making my own, and I just made it look like the certificates that went out of business, so it was similar. But it's like, they're fun, and I think that people that collect like having something like that, but they don't actually add value as far as I'm concerned, or from anything I've seen. So these are the deeper shadows on this guy here. And I'm just paying attention to where the fur curves. Kelly said, it's so funny that the eyes are so easy and quick, but really make the artwork pop. I worked forever on a dog's fur and ears, but everyone commented on how great the eye and nose look. Oh my gosh, that's so true. Now the nose will take me longer, but it's like, that's the easiest, the eyes are the easiest part. And that's the thing that everyone's, oh my gosh, the eyes look so realistic. Like that was like 2 seconds. The hair, pay attention to the hair. I'll have to pull a lot of purples and violets into the shadows in a lot of what I'm doing here. Let's go over onto his other ear where the darker portions are. Let's see. Eduardo said, that brown paint on your palette looks like a girl's what? Looks like a girl's unconscious. I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm not reading that. Painting Violet Sky said, hi Lisa, what do you put on the back of your paintings, if anything? The title, year, your name, etc. No, I don't write on the back. I don't see any reason to write on the back. No one sees the back. You could write the title on the stretcher bars, I guess, if you wanted, but I don't write anything on the back. I will generally sign my name, the year, and then I put the little Trinity symbol there. But I've been signing it that way forever, although I am starting to consider not including the year anymore. And this thought really came to pass this year when I was giving a Christmas present to somebody I don't like. It's a family member that I'm obligated to, but we don't like each other, one of those. So I used an old one from like 2013 or something was her gift, and I'm like, that makes it very obvious that it's kind of like a afterthought. You were an afterthought. I didn't give you a current painting. So I'm like, wow. And then it starts to get you thinking, like, do people devalue? And I was reading some articles that they were talking about that, where some people think if it's older, it's not worth as much, which just doesn't make any sense. It would kind of be the opposite. But yeah, so I'm honestly considering not adding my signature anymore. Mostly, that was the biggest thing, though, when I had to give that Christmas gift, and I'm like, oh, that really makes it obvious. I mean, it wasn't a bad painting. It was just that it was older, and it makes it appear I'm giving you like my second, like my leftovers. But so I'm not really sure. I don't know what people are seeing. There, fixed it. Otherwise, I'm going to obsess and want to see it too. Let's see. Make sure if you've got any questions to do the Lachri fine art. If it does not highlight my name in orange, I'm probably not going to see it. I mean, I'll respond if I see the question, but it's not that I'm ignoring you. It's just that I don't see the comments otherwise. But I did see somebody asked something. What are your tips or advice for aspiring freelance artists like myself? Produce more, produce a lot, paint a lot, or draw, or whatever it is that you do. Do more. You're going to serve 2 things in that. One, you're going to improve. The second thing is it keeps you relevant. So if you're using social media in that, one of the things that a lot of people will do, they'll spend 5 months on this piece and it's great, but you are irrelevant to most people at that point. you want to keep relevant. You want to keep your name out there and going, and you're going to do that by producing more. So, and now I'm not trying to say produce like just quantity over quality. You've got to find a nice balance there, but you have to paint a lot. You can't just like, oh, I got one great painting done and now I'm going to take a break and just go watch TV for the next 6 months. You will not be relevant. That would be my biggest advice. And getting going on social media really changed things for artists. We used to be so dependent on galleries to sell anything, or for a while, eBay actually used to work really well, but we were so dependent on these outside sources to sell our work, and we're not anymore. As long as we get that social media going. This is, I think, one of the best times in history to be an artist. Anyone can be an artist. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you have any money. There's no, it doesn't matter what your social standing is, or, how close of a friend you are to the king or anything like that. None of that is a thing anymore. Your work and how much you produce, keeping yourself relevant. That's a very, very big thing. See, where were we? Hold on, lost my mouse. Noni's Nook said, are you using a retardant in the paint to keep it from drying on your palette? No, I hate retardants. Hate them passionately. They make your paint goopy. I do not like them. I paint fast. This isn't gonna dry in here, and if I need to, I can mist it with a spray bottle on the palette itself. This will start to dry, and all I'm gonna do is take my razor blade or my glass scraper, which I apparently lost. I don't know where that is, but I will scrape that off and then redo. And that's only the areas that are mixing that will start to dry, but these piles will stay wet. So no, I do not like the retardants, and I don't even know anyone who produces artwork the way I want mine to look who uses them. Everyone either paints fast or uses an airbrush to keep the paint wet. So that was a lot of words just to say no, I do not. Let's see. Diane said, that's why I don't date my paintings. I think that if people perceive it to be old, it's not a current painting, therefore not as good. Yeah, I think and it sucks because it's been a part of my signature for so long. The year just fits nicely. Maybe for commission type things, I'll still include it, but for stuff that I'll eventually sell, I think I'm going to start leaving that off. I'm going to have to, I don't know I've got to work on my signature then, because that's a part of the design of my signature. Let's see. Renee said, I watched a watercolor tutorial on painting fur today. She was also painting a white dog and used a lot of violet and burnt umber. Yep, those are two colors I will definitely be using. I have violet right behind me. Let's see. Karen said, thanks for the postcards. I got mine yesterday. Yay! And thank you for being patient, because I'm way behind. I need to get back caught up on everything again. For 2 months, I was so good and everything went out as soon as I could send them, once the payments came through. For Patreon, if you're unfamiliar with Patreon, there's a tier where you get postcards every month. Well, every month, sometimes they're a couple months late. You eventually get them. But yeah, I just got November and December, which should have gone out December and January. The way the months go with Patreon are kind of weird. But yeah, those just went out. So I need to now work on January and February. Let's see. Heather said, and here I thought I was slow, only getting 2 pieces done along with sketching in 5 weeks. Yeah, I was looking, and it was a beautiful piece somebody had shared today, yesterday, I don't know, recently, and they had spent 5 months on it, and I'm like, it's good. Now, I think it's different too. Are you a hobbyist or are you trying to make a living at it? That makes a big difference. If you are a hobbyist and you're just doing it for enjoyment, you spend all the time you want and you enjoy the process. Does not matter. But when you're trying to make a living at it, you do have to get a decent amount produced to stay relevant. I remember back, this would have been around 2000, a long time ago. I was down at Venice Beach with my friend Jaime, who's also an artist, and we had our work displayed and we were selling out there, and this one guy who was actually selling really well, he had prints made. He had a cool design, I don't know, something with a hand and an eye, I don't remember. I just remember it was cool and unique. It was kind of a surreal piece, and he was selling the prints, and he was making a good profit off that one piece. And I remember getting in my head thinking, I just need to do one really good thing. No, it doesn't normally work that way, and that was probably a one-off day. This guy, he stole my friend's wallet, so I'm guessing he was struggling financially and that he wasn't making as much as it appeared. But that, I remember thinking, wow, just one good piece, but it doesn't work that way. You have to constantly produce new stuff. And I think there's a challenge in finding, like, how do you keep your work, you can tell it's you. You want to develop that style, but also not just paint the same thing over and over and over again to where everything you do looks exactly the same. Like having them different, but still within your style also is a big deal when getting yourself out there. I'm still just focusing on the shadows at this point. There are no highlights in here yet. Gibson, your stomach is making some terrifying noises. Daniel said, do you know how well M. Grumbacher brushes are to work with? I inherited 3 full sets and old brushes, perfect condition, researched them. One brush sells for 300 plus natural sable. The ones I've used, I've liked fine. But keep in mind, I don't know that I'm the best person to ask. I'm not super picky on my brushes. Like if it's a tackle bristled filbert, I'm going to use it. I don't care who makes it or how much it costs. It's usually going to work for me. So I'm definitely not a label person, a label street worker. I don't know how to word that when it comes to my brushes. So you may want to ask somebody who is. But the ones that I have and that I've used because I got them on clearance, they were fine. I liked them, but it wasn't like I have to go buy all of these brushes. I'm not going to put the money into it. I just don't see the difference. But I'm probably abnormal in that, so maybe don't ask me. And Fine Art Studio said, currently working on a Patreon group challenge from a few months back, the sleeping polar bear, while my commissions are slow. I need to, actually, that's one of the things, I have so much stuff to do tomorrow. But one of them, I need to get the February Patreon challenge up. I had a few ideas for that, but I'll look for different photos to make sure that will make for good challenges. But anyway, yeah, that should be, your next one should be coming soon too. So I don't want to put too much work around his mouth because I have to actually get his mouth, his tongue, all of that painted before I do the fur. And I don't really want to work on that in tonight's video. So we're just going to kind of loosely block those in. And like even this area, this will be a deeper violet color. This is way too golden for that, but as long as I know where these shadows go, we'll be okay. And this is normally, like if I'm painting and not live streaming, this part goes super fast, just the blocking everything in. And I don't need every strand of fur to be exact. I mean, the dog shakes his head, the fur just repositioned itself. So it doesn't have to be exact, but I do need to be close. Make sure you're capturing the feel of that subject. So in this case, like he's got a lot of poof around his muzzle. I need to make sure I'm capturing that, just all the poof. I need to keep the poof and the texture of the fur. But if like one strand is out of place, that doesn't really matter. Yeah, as long as you're close. Let's see. Donna said, nice to see you. It's been a long time. Loving the pet portrait. Thanks. Glad you made it tonight. Gail said, I was wondering if the neighbors you're bartering with are watching you paint this for them live. I'd be jazzed to watch someone paint something like this. Possibly. I know she wanted to watch it, but I'm not sure if she is watching tonight live or not. Chris says, hello. Hello, Chris. Oh, that scrolled too far. And here we go. Back up. There we go. Down in the farm studio said it's an odd thing because dating art used to add more value. The older it was, the better. Yeah, see, that's what I would have thought too. But yeah, it's a weird thing. So I may just start leaving it out. I just have to figure out what I'm like. Well, just leave that space open? Maybe? I don't know. I have to think about that. Let's see. Ian Jackson said, how long did the Sistine Chapel take? See, that's different. Back then, you had patrons that were not the same as today's, like Patreon. Today, you need to be producing. You need to be on top of stuff. That was a huge undertaking, and he was funded for that huge undertaking, and he wasn't trying to keep up with social media. You can't compare hundreds of years ago with today when it comes to the way that we produce. So it's an interesting point that you bring up, but it's not the same. You're not comparing apples to apples in that case. Today, the way that we produce is very, very different. And then Fine Art Studio said, I totally fangirl when I get my Patreon postcards from you. My husband accidentally threw one away. Oh no! And I freaked out on him and demanded he dig it out of the trash. That's awesome. If it got messed up, let me know and I'll send you a new one. Clark said, just trying to develop your style can be a challenge. Any tips or just keep painting and see what emerges? That's it right there. You just keep painting and see what emerges. So years ago, I was painting at one of those places, oh, that was way too much, where the paint party where you paint, people drink while you paint. This wasn't like painting. It was like painting with a twist, only the people who worked there, we actually knew how to paint, unlike painting with a twist. Doesn't, some of them know how to paint, but most of the ones in my area do not. So anyway, point is, it was a bunch of artists who, most of them had degrees in art. I mean, these were people who were very experienced. So I remember we were working on paintings one day, and that's starting to dry. And I was kind of going on this whole like, oh, I want to have a style. I don't have a style. And the other artist finally looked at me and she's like, and this is why I brought up that we knew how to paint, that we weren't just random people they pulled off the street, because her opinion, she knew what she was talking about. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what? She goes, I can always tell when it's yours. I'm like, no, my stuff's all over the place. And then I start looking around, I'm like, oh, so you can see a pattern with my work, certain elements that I use, certain brushstrokes, certain ways of doing that. And that only came, it wasn't something I planned out and thought, okay, I'm developing a style. It naturally happens the more you paint. You're going to be drawn to certain subjects. You're going to be drawn to certain ways of painting, certain colors, the way that you do your contrast and your values. That just comes from experience. So don't do what I did, where I was like stressing myself out, trying to come up, like, how do I come up with a style? And it turned out I already, it was pretty much there. I just you don't see it when it's your own as much as somebody from the outside will, but that comes from the more you paint. Good question though. I just made a mess. Let's see. Christy said, I would love to start Patreon, but I work full time and can't do 3 to 4 hour long videos a month. Do you think it's worth having a lower tier and do 1 to 2 tutorials and then increase over time? Absolutely. I think the key is to have people know what to expect from you. So like I've known of people who are like, oh, I'm going to have a video a week, and they might do 1 a month. That the problem isn't that they're only doing 1 a month, I don't think. It's that they made a promise that they didn't follow through with, and people didn't feel like they were getting what they were told they were going to get. So I absolutely think you can do that. As long, like, people know on the 1st and the 15th or whatever it is that you'll have a new video. That would absolutely work. Carla said, I have to ask you, what is the glowing blue thing in the background behind you? Is it this? Wait, I don't think it's glowing. If it's this, it's just the holder holding my camera on. When I look at the little screen, it looks like it's glowing. Is that it? I don't know what else is glowing. Let me know if it's this thing I'm pointing at here, because it looks weird on the camera, but I'm looking on a tiny thumbnail. I'm not sure what else is glowing in blue behind me. Let's see. If it is, that's just the webcam attached to my other camera. Let's see. Diane said, I just made that weird syllable wise. Diane said, is Grumbacher a good retouch varnish? It's all we have locally. Would love to order. Would have to order anything else. I've not used the Grumbacher. I use the what is it? The Gambar by Gamblin. That is the one that I use for oils. For acrylics, I use Liquitex. I've not used Grumbacher varnishes. It's a good brand. I would trust them for sure. I'm sure it's fine. I would look at reviews, but I've not seen anything they made I didn't like. So you should be okay. But I've not used it, so I can't tell you much besides I trust the name. Miriam says, haven't you mentioned before that you use a certain brush to mist water to keep paint active? If I'm painting on the canvas and I need the canvas to stay wet, I'll use an airbrush and just mist water, and that works beautifully. It's all I need. It doesn't gunk up my paint. It's perfect. But here I'm just painting fast. There's no reason for me to need to keep this wet. Elaine, where did that go? Scrolled too far. Whoa, scrolled way too far. Elaine said, I'd like to start painting and I have a bunch of canvases from Walmart. Should I not bother with them? I think I remember an old video where you say not to use them. You can play around with them. Usually the supplies, and I've randomly seen decent supplies at Walmart, so I'm not sure which ones they are, but usually the supplies I've seen at Walmart, they make your life harder. It's harder to paint with them because they're so terrible. like paint, some of them that students brought in, whatever they varnished, or not varnished, whatever they gessoed it with, or the primer they used, you'd put the paint on. It was almost like painting on paper, where the water and the paint would just soak into it really weird, or if it's got too much tooth, that can be an issue. So while part of me says for practice, use whatever, it's fine, it's practice, the other part just wants you to know if you are frustrated and things aren't blending, especially with acrylics, and you're having trouble, it's probably the canvas. So often people will give up and think, I can't do this. And it was really just that they were using absolutely terrible materials. So that is one of the reasons I generally, like when I taught classes in person, I did not allow students to use like those canvases. I can't teach you how to do what I do on that because it doesn't work right. So that's, I mean, if you've already got them, play with them. Maybe get some gesso and try gessoing over them. I don't know that I would sell the work because I don't trust that not to flake off over time, depending on what primer they used. And I've seen some weird stuff happen with those canvases, or with any cheapy canvases. But for learning, like I said, part of me wants to say, yeah, play with it. And either way, play with it. But do be aware, if things are not going well for you, it might be the canvas and not that acrylics aren't a fit for you, or whatever paint medium you're working in. I've seen that happen a lot, where people give up, like with colored pencils. They would use crap pencils and then give up because they were frustrating, and it turned out it was the pencil, not the fact that it was a colored pencil. It was the type they were using, or the paper they were using, or whatever else there. This little beard. Let's see. Nick demanding everyone hit the like button. I like what you're thinking, Nick. I do appreciate when people hit the like button. It depending on who you ask, it can help your video be seen by more people. Mostly it makes me feel nice. Esme said, hi Lisa, long time no see. I wanted to ask your opinion on small artist alleys or convention booths. They can, well, it depends. It depends on the location, and it depends on what kind of traffic each of those get. It may be an amazing thing for you, and it may be absolutely worthless. It really depends. I would try to talk to other artists who go to those specific events and see how it's worked for them. I would never recommend signing up for any event, art show, anything that you have not already been there in person the year before. Talking about stuff that's annual, but always go and see how it's working for other artists, because some of those are just an absolute waste of time and effort and money, and you want to see if that's going to be a benefit to you. Sometimes it's worth doing just because it's fun. So there's that aspect. If it doesn't cost too much to be involved, depending on how much that venue is charging, that may be worth it. Like Aquashella, I don't make a lot at Aquashella. People who are into reef keeping don't know who I am yet, because I have not been in that field until, well, I was heavily involved with that before social media, and then not since. So no one, now that I'm getting back into it, no one knows who I am yet. When it comes to those, I don't make a lot of, I'm not financially benefiting, but it's fun, and so it's worth it for me to go do anyway. So it depends on the event, I guess, for sure. There's not a single answer that is going to fit every single one or every single situation. So I would go talk to other artists, see how they're doing, if they like it, if it's something they recommend continuing with, and also see how much the other artists are selling stuff for. Because like I've gone to shows that were mixed craft and fine art. Okay, the crafters, they were selling stuff okay, but no one wanted to spend more than $20 on anything. So the crafters made a decent amount of money. Fine artists didn't make anything. So that will make a difference too. How much are they selling? Are they comparable? Look at the people who are selling for about what yours go for, similar type of work, and see how they're doing, and then decide if you think it's going to be worth it to do. But the one thing that was fun, one of my favorite memories as an artist was doing and maybe I'm just remembering it wrong because it was over 20 years ago, but it was a Saturday, the art walk in the Pomona Art Colony, down off, what street was that? I don't remember anymore. It was so long ago. But you'd sit out there with your art in front of the gallery that your stuff was in. It was just fun. I just enjoyed it. So, and maybe I'm just romanticizing something that I actually hated, but it was 20 years ago, so I think I liked it. But I remember anyway, it was a long time ago, I remember enjoying those events. And those didn't cost me anything other than my effort to get there. Moon's Path said, I moved to a sunny home and had a personalized print fade. It's chickadees and birch trees. Any chance I could fix it, and what medium? Right now it's unhung. If it's a print, I would just get another print. I mean, I don't know what the print was done with. You can't really fix it. I guess you could paint over it, but now it's not going to be the same. It's never going to be the same. I would just get another print if that's what it is. Original art. You never want to put your work, it can be in a bright room. You don't want it in direct sunlight, or if it is, I mean, UV glass will help, but you never want artwork, even in that case, in direct sunlight, as you found out. Whatever you do, it's not going to be the same. So if it was something that I really liked, I would try to get another copy of that print and not put it in the sun. I know that's not the answer you want, but it's just not going to be the same. Birdsong said, as far as I know, the Sistine Chapel took 7 years to paint and the Catholic Church never paid him. Oh, that's interesting. But he would have been making money by somebody was giving him money to be able to live. I mean, something else was going on there. There's definitely more to that story. Unless he was independently wealthy already, which I don't know a whole lot of the history with him, so I can't say. Renee said, signing and dating will be more important when you get really famous and after you're dead. It's for people to track your growth as an artist. Well, and it's kind of different now though, because can't they just track it off social media? It's not like before where you couldn't find information on the painting. Now you look through someone's social media profile and you can figure out when everything was painted. I mean, if you dig far enough back. So I wonder if that will make any difference, because the amount of information, how easy it is to get information now. I don't know. Interesting thoughts. Plus, I don't really care how much the paintings are worth when I'm dead. I'll be dead. Won't matter. Let's see. Birdsong says, from what I know, it took Michelangelo. Oh, that scrolled too far. Dang it. Come back. Come back. Oh my gosh. Way too far. There we go. It took him 7 years to paint the Sistine Chapel in the Catholic Church. Ended up not paying him for it. Okay. Were they supposed to? I want to know this. I'm going to have to look into that. I'm curious about the story behind that. Carla Franklin said, it is. Oh, I thought you made a shark body with a glowing body light. Oh no, it's what do they call them? It's like 5 stars that bend so I can wrap it around things. But it's a weird color in this. Down in the Garden Studio said, I've noticed unfortunately that you have to watch sketchbooks at Walmart as well. The pages either develop an oily looking vignette over time or slightly yellow, even if not used. Oh wow. Anne-Marie said, I have a permanent job and I have 6 painting ideas and started writing 3 books and must have made 8,000 3D cards. Time is my enemy. Yeah, I would definitely like longer days myself. Jay said, can you talk about advantages of the acrylic underpainting with the oil versus fully acrylic painting? So acrylic dries very, very quickly. That can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing depending on how good you are with acrylics and getting them to blend. So what I do, sorry, my nose is itching. Allergy season is coming, so this is life now. What I do the thing with oils, like there are things that I love and hate about oils, and there are things I love and hate about acrylics, such as the dry time. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it in acrylic. Same thing goes for oils. If I use both, I can take advantage of the best of both worlds. And I'm not fighting trying to get things blended perfectly because it's going to get this perfect, amazing blend with oil on top later. So it lets me just loosely, like what I'm doing here. These lines, if I were going to do this finished in acrylics, I would be blending these out better. I would be softening it up. I don't have to worry about it. I get to be sloppy and messy because I know I'm going over this with oils in not, pretty soon. Well, next week technically for me, but I can adjust for a lot of things that would be slightly more difficult, and it's not impossible. I could definitely do this all with acrylics. You guys have seen me do that plenty of times, but it kind of makes everything a little bit easier if I am using like knowing I don't need to blend this out perfect. I'm going to do that part with oils. But the thing that I like about doing it with acrylics now is it saves time. If I do everything with oils, that's going to take a little bit longer because I've got more of the dry time. Here, I can get most of this blocked out really quickly. I mean, technically, I could have his whole face mapped out in acrylics in a day. I mean, it would be a long day, but I could do that. With oils, I can't. I've got to stop and let it dry. So this lets me take advantage of my favorite parts about both mediums, just planning, you know, which elements I'm going to focus on for which medium, which section. Down in the Farm Studio said, admitted at Aquashella, all of the other vendors are benefiting from you being there, and not just because you're wonderful artwork. I didn't buy anything. I actually don't. So what I prefer to buy, I like to go to Aquashella, but I like to buy from my local fish store because corals are animals and they get stressed when they're transported around for shows, and they usually do fine. But I don't know, I just like getting it from my local art or local fish store. I go to Aqua Studios Aquarium in the Colony, and I like getting my stuff there because they're already, like, I can look at them, see what they look like when they're not stressed because they've been there for a bit. Plus, I've got a tiny, tiny tank. I can't just be throwing stuff in there, and I don't have a quarantine setup. So I'm very cautious about what I put in the tank because I don't need to infect anybody else. So no, I actually don't buy much at that. The last Aquashella in Dallas, my husband bought this really cool, I think it was a cuttlefish, colored pencil print from another artist who I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. Amazing artist. Oh, that sucks. I can't remember her name. But anyway, that was the only thing that we bought. No, see, I didn't buy things. They gave me I bought a beta. That's not totally true. I bought a beta. I bought a couple things for the tank, but most of the stuff was given to me by different vendors. So if anything, I'm probably costing vendors money. Let's see. But the last Aquashella in Chicago, I didn't buy anything, mostly because I didn't want to take it home on a plane. Let's see. Thanks, Melissa. Oh, gosh, I've skipped a lot of questions. I'm scrolling back up right now, trying to find where we left off. There we go. Elizabeth said, thank you for inspiring us and your instruction and experience and expertise. You are so talented. Love your artwork. Thank you. That is so sweet. Mrs. Ray said, what kind of brush are you using? Sorry if you covered it, just tuned in. This one is actually I think it's low Cornell. So see, I do like some of the lower Cornell stuff. It's a 1/2 inch rake filbert brush. So I don't know if you can see, the bristles are kind of separated. So with one brush stroke, I get a whole bunch of little brush strokes. But what I'm trying to do is damage it. It's still not damaged enough, so it doesn't work that great as a rake brush. These work best when they're old and slightly stiff. So I'm kind of using it a little bit more like a filbert than a rake. Although it is starting to get more damaged, so it is giving me the frayed edges that I'm looking for. But I'm using that in just a regular Taklon bristle, my brain is not working. A Taklon bristled filbert. There we go. For blending it out, just slightly damp for areas that were a bit more harsh than I want. And all I'm doing right now, these are just going to be the shadows. And a lot of these I have to go back through with purples. I have to go back through with a lot of other colors. This is just mapping it out, getting a general idea of which direction the fur moves. Down on the Farm Studio said, that was my thought as well. Finish something and the date can be found on my website and social media, so not dating it might not make a difference. Yeah, it sucks because sucks isn't the right word. It's hard because there are pros and cons, and I see the benefit and the negative to both, and I'm really not sure. And I never really cared too much because I'm like, meh, whatever, it's part of my signature. Until I gave that gift to the family member who I'm not hugely fond of, and she probably knows that, and I give her something that's old, and I'm like, that kind of looks bad. I don't know. Let's see. Now, every family member ever, if they watch this, they're like, wait, was I the person she's talking about? Just kidding. My family members, they don't watch. Moon's Path said, thanks, I'll try to find him. Clark Fine Art said, so what are you using? 3 webcams to stream right into YouTube Studio? I'm using 3. I've got the webcam that's on my easel. I have the webcam that's on my palette, and then I have the webcam from my laptop, and they're all running through OBS, which is free. You can download that. It's amazing, but I'm able to pan out or figure out which camera is where and move them around and It's a really good program. Gail said, am I seeing things, or have you painted a mural in the corner behind you? I did. I don't know if you call it, I guess it would be considered a mural. I always consider a mural something that's far more elaborate. I painted the wall mostly to the ceiling with teal and gray. It's kind of blotchy. And then the two edges here and here just kind of fade out. And then I have branches coming from the ceiling down into it. I couldn't stand the light colored walls, and they weren't photographing well when I was trying to stage photos of things. So I haven't posted photos of it yet because I'm not quite done. There are things I want to change about it, so I haven't updated you guys with what this looks like. I'm still, it's like a work in progress. I don't know what I'm going to adjust. Although, so this is kind of cool. Derwent is sending a film crew out to do an artist feature thing on me, and they'll be filming in my studio, but that means I need to figure out how I want this to look. I need to finish that by the next few weeks here. Let's see. Where were we? Oh, I missed a lot. Let's scroll up. Ursi said, Michelangelo said the art was total make-believe, that he did very well. That is why he didn't get any money in the commission. He did get food for working. The Vatican said to the artist, you can't get the money, saying it's all make-believe art. What? Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking into the history of that. I'm kind of fascinated by that now. Fine Art Studio said, can you speak about ways to cope with illnesses and being a full-time artist? Any life hacks you have discovered that works for working but also taking care of yourself? Yeah, number one, diet. That is a big deal. We have it, and I do it too. Like, I ate powdered donuts last week, and I don't normally eat sugar. I got into powdered donuts. My husband got me some a couple days ago. I have no self-control, so that box of 6 powdered donuts was gone in like less than 24 hours. No self-control when it comes to sugar. So I felt like crap, and I know it. And a lot of us, it's so easy when you start feeling like crap, like, oh, I don't want to make anything healthy. I don't want to eat anything healthy. I just want something easy. But that's usually going to contribute to a lot of those illnesses, at least for me. I mean, I don't know what you're struggling with, so I can't say for certain, but for most of us, our diet is going to make a big difference. So it impacts my arthritis. It impacts my fibromyalgia. It's all kinds of bad when I start eating like crap. Now, I can have a bad meal once or twice a week, and I'm not going to notice anything major. But when I start eating that way regularly, and it's this endless spiral of like that snowball effect, right? I had something crappy, I kind of felt icky. And then I'm like, I don't really feel like cooking something or making a salad. I'll just eat chips, or I don't know, whatever seemed easy. So then that makes me feel more sick, which makes me want to eat something healthy even less. And you get into this habit of just eating crap. So that would be the biggest thing, is like give yourself like a week that you're going to only eat healthy things. I don't know. For me, carbs are a big one. Carbs will really cause a lot of inflammation, and oh man, do they hurt my arthritis. And then I start getting real nauseated. It's a whole thing. So I had to figure out what worked best for me. For me, it is a very low carb diet. I have to avoid all sweeteners, and I can't even get away with like stevia and some of the natural sweeteners. The only sweetener I can do that's natural that doesn't cause any ill effect is raw honey. But everything else makes me absolutely feel terrible, and I had to figure out what worked for me and try to stick with that. When we moved, I really ate everything bad. Like, I felt crappy, didn't want to eat, and I did that and started that whole loop again. But getting your diet under control, and it's hard, but it really will make you feel, there's no way it won't make someone feel better. We've gotten, like, just as a society as a whole, here I go on a rant, we've gotten so used to living off crap that comes out of a can or a box and isn't like stuff we make or actual food. So yeah, no, that all definitely contributes to how you feel. So my first tip is getting your diet under control and eating things that are, like in my case, things that are anti-inflammatory are a good choice. I can eat fruit. So while I say I'm low carb, I do best if I also eat fruit. So it's not a full like keto diet. Real fruit, not like canned fruit soaked in sugar. Those sorts of things really make a difference. But I mean, there are days where I just feel terrible and I'm going to sleep a little bit extra. Although usually the longer I lay down, the worse my back gets. So that doesn't help that much. But I mean, you will have those days. And I think for me, it was, I have to figure out, okay, am I not wanting to get a bunch of work done today because I'm being lazy, or do I genuinely not feel well? Because I think sometimes those two can kind of overlap in figuring out, am I not accomplishing anything because I just am not in the mood, and I'm using my health stuff as an excuse? Because I'm always going to feel like I'm always in pain. That doesn't go away completely because of my arthritis. But there are days that I think that I get over the top lazy and I still could get things done, but I just am not in the mood. And I'm like, my arthritis is bad. I'll just not do anything today. I think figuring out, am I making excuses for myself, or does it really hurt? It always hurts, but does it hurt bad enough for me to be lazy, like not get stuff accomplished? That's something that I've had to ask myself for years. I'm always having to go, okay, is this a lazy moment, or is this a legitimate I don't feel well moment? So asking those makes a big difference. But honestly, I would say the biggest thing is diet, and that took me a long time to figure out. Because the sicker I got for a while there. I was living off Cool Ranch Doritos. This was, 15 years ago. I had no idea that was what was making me get worse. So once I figured that out, things got a lot better. It takes a lot of self-discipline. I won't claim that it's easy, which is kind of ridiculous that we're so big on junk food that it's hard to eat healthy. It shouldn't be. I really hate cooking though. That doesn't help. Really hate it. Let's see. But I think the other thing too, I will throw out there, I always tell myself, it's I'm going to feel terrible whether I'm working or whether I'm sitting around doing nothing. Why don't I just get some work done? I mean, if I'm not hurting myself, that's the thing, as long as you're not hurting yourself, which as an artist, it's not exactly strenuous. So it's not now it would be different. Let's say you have a problem with your back. Sitting at the easel might be a problem for doing that too long, but it doesn't affect me in that way. So I can't use that excuse. So it's kind of well, I'm going to be sick either way. And years ago, I had to decide, do I want to live feeling like I'm disabled, or do I want to actually get stuff done? Because I had people try to talk me into going on disability years ago. And it's but that's not what I want. I want to be an artist. So I want to work through that. I mean, I can work through home. This is a very low impact job. It's not super stressful most of the time. So yeah, that was just the decision of, I am not going to let my illness dictate how my life is lived. I have to deal with stuff, and you do too, with whatever is going on with you. We have to deal with stuff that not everyone has to deal with, and it does make it harder. I'm not going to claim it doesn't, but I'm also not going to let it rule my life. It's a part of it, but I try to ignore it as much as possible and just eat healthy. And yeah, I'm getting back on the whole eating healthy thing. I've done terribly the last few months, and I can feel it. Okay. Let's see. Miriam said, talking about dating paintings, just think your live streams will be holographic. Now that would be cool. Painting, and it's kind of funny. So I have my better camera, my DSLR. I actually don't love how that looks when I use it to record the intros of videos. Some of these cameras get so good. I don't want you to see how many wrinkles I have on a webcam. I look 20 years younger than I really am. So yeah, some of these get so good that it's oh, my painting doesn't look as good on that good camera as it did on my fuzzy camera. So yeah, some of these devices are getting too advanced. Painting Violet Sky says, back to the date topic. Do you think that painting with an older date on the front can have a stigma because it hasn't sold yet? And see, that is exactly one of the things that I had considered too. Because people are thinking, wow, you've had this painting for 10 years and no one wanted it. Why would I want it? So yes, that did cross my mind when I started really thinking about the fact that I was giving that family member an older painting. That was exactly it. Wow, it didn't sell, so it's not worth, it's not as good just because of that. So no, I think it does. I could be wrong, but it crossed my mind, so I'm assuming it's crossed other people's minds. Boz Art said, when you get a commission, how long do you give yourself or client for completion? For instance, do you give the client a date and when it will be finished by? I used to. I don't anymore because I don't really take commissions anymore, with very rare exceptions. I just don't have time. So I'll talk about when I used to take commissions, and the reason that I don't now is I can't fit like, I can't time that and have the video done on time and have it's just too hard with doing the videos, which is really where my focus is now. But what I used to do is let them know, yeah, it will take about this long. And when I first started, I wasn't as good with it. Like my friend Stacy, who I ended up being really good friends with, originally, she was one of my first clients for commissions. Met her on a forum and she hired me to paint several of her dogs. And you can still see some of those Italian Greyhound paintings on my website. But they, it was more of, I'll get it done. Oh, it'll probably take me a month. It'll probably take me, and it was always the, it'll probably, but that was actually back when I talked about living off Doritos and wasn't feeling well. It was during those years. So I was not getting as much done as I should have been back then. But she was always like, yeah, whatever. She knew I'd get it done. So she never gave me crap about it. But luckily, by the time I started dealing with people who would have had an issue with that, which they should, they have every right, they're paying me. I had it down. I knew how long it would take me to get something done. So I would tell them, I'll have it done by this date, and then I need it to dry for this long, and then I will varnish it, and then I need it to dry for this much longer, and then I can ship it at this point. So I broke down when they could expect it, and I made myself stick to that, because people start getting annoyed when they paid you lots of money and they have nothing to show for it. So yes, I definitely recommend it. When I started, I did not do that. I was lucky that I didn't run into any major issues with people being mad at me for how long things were taking, but it is much, much better if you can let them know approximately how long it'll take. And I always recommend tell people it'll take you longer than you think it will be, because if something comes up, if you get sick, family member gets sick, whatever, and you can't get that done, you can't hit those deadlines, that's going to irritate them. You are far better off to tell them it'll take an extra week than you think it'll take you and have it done early than the opposite. I've seen artists are really bad about this. Artists, I mean, we can be flaky. That's kind of like in our nature. And I irritated some people saying that, I'm sure. But I mean, realistically, being a creative, that is not uncommon. And I see way too often where people have complained they're mad because their client doesn't understand. They got sick and then this happened and then this happened and then this happened. And it's like, okay, at what point are you going to stop making excuses? At what point are these reasons that you're late nothing more than you not fulfilling your obligations? Artists have a tendency to think, well, I wasn't in the mood, or I didn't feel like they're just not fitting. They're not fulfilling their promises. So, and that's always just been something that irritated me. Anyway, and especially when they complain and then they're mad that the client doesn't understand and they wanted it done. And your life problems, your health, your anything is not the client's problem. And that may sound harsh. The client doesn't care. The client wants what they paid you for. So if you, that's why I would always say, give it an extra week or two. Tell them it'll take a week or two longer. That way they're not annoyed when something comes up for you. And I've seen where people have a tendency, and maybe it's just bad luck. Maybe it's just they make a lot of excuses. It's like, at what point you had no one's that unlucky. So many, one after another, after another, after another. I know the whole when it rains it pours thing, but some of these that people were complaining about, and it's been years ago, so don't go looking for forum posts or whatever. It was so long ago that the ones I'm thinking of are popping into my head. But it was like, that's on you, not the client. You're being the irrational one here. You told them you would have it done, and your life isn't their problem. They're not your friend. They're your client. There's something that's different, you have to keep that in mind. I mean, if you sent your car in to be repaired and 2 weeks later it's still not done, but the mechanic was like, oh, I got sick, my family got sick, this and that, aren't you going to be mad? Put yourself in their shoes. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on after that rant. Elaine said, are you still thinking about making a video on photographing your artwork? Absolutely. I have a whole lot of video ideas. I just need to sit down and actually do them. But yes, that is a definite, yes. Where are we? Oh my gosh. So many questions or comments I missed. Sung said, is it actually hard to make a living as an artist? Because I'm planning on being a professional artist. Hope you do well on your acrylic painting. Thank you. And it can be, learn business and marketing. Learn to market yourself. Learn the social media side of things. That is where artists who can't make a living, that is generally where they fail. They fail at marketing their work. It might be a skill issue, but more often than not, it's an issue of you didn't learn to market stuff. I mean, I see amazing artists and they get frustrated because they can never sell stuff, and it's like, because you're not marketing. Like all this, we have so many resources online on business and marketing for free. Use it. Learn to do social media. Learn to get that stuff out there. Is it hard? It was hard for me in the beginning, especially because when I started, there was no social media. Yes, I'm old. So then it was a lot harder. I think it's gotten a lot easier. It's just learning how to get your name out there, how to market yourself, and producing content regularly, building up that following. And I think it's especially hard in the beginning because you'll occasionally have someone who blows up overnight and gets really big really fast, but that's not the norm. The norm is it's going to take you years of working for near free to get that following, to get it to where people know who you are so that you can make sales. Like I said, there are exceptions. I think you can do it a lot faster now with social media, but it's going to take you time. Don't give up. That's a big thing too. People are like, I'm going to go all in for a year, and then they give up because it takes longer than that usually. So if you're patient, you can certainly do it, but it comes down to building up that following, building up a name for yourself, which can take time. Clark said, "Congrats! Can't wait to see Duro post it." Me too. I'm really excited about that. Daniel said, "I live by 3 rules. 1, do not work. 2, do no favors. Definitely do not lend money to them." Oh, to friends? Yeah. Well, I do favors. I do favors and I do work. I would not lend money because that gets weird. Or to friends, like I would. And I've been tempted before. If I give someone money, I give them money. I don't want it back. Like, this is for you to help. And I've done that because then you don't ruin a friendship when someone doesn't pay you back. You don't want it back. So I've done that, but I don't, yeah. Izzy asked, do I like oil paint or acrylic paint more? I would say acrylic because that was kind of my first love, my first medium that I really started taking serious. And I can get things done very, very quickly. I love them both, but I would say if I could only choose one, it would be acrylic. Renee said, wow, about Durant coming out with a film crew. I know, so excited. Ariel said, I was told a while back that by Dick Blick, that the rake brush you're using right now has been discontinued. Is there another brand that you would recommend in its place? Bob Ross, and I don't like Bob Ross products for the way that I paint, but he has an animal fur brush that works pretty well. That one's pretty good, but I'm not sure otherwise. I haven't bought a new one in a while. Let's see. Down on Farm Studio said, you mean they're coming to film Gibson and you'll be there too? Yeah, actually, probably. I'm pretty sure my animals will end up being in this a lot. Heather said, congrats, so excited for you. Thank you. Ursi said, have you tried the plain raspberry tea? I have not yet. I have not looked for it yet. Carla said, have you tried Swerve? It's good. It's good. I have arthritis too and it works for me. I don't know what that is. I've never even heard of it. That writing is too small. I'm not going to try to say it. Art Doll said, low carb, paleo, no dairy seems to be best in my experience with mostly meat and green vegetables and tons of water. It really affects how much art we want to make. Yes, and I do. When I feel better, oh my gosh, I can get so much more work done. And lately, because I've been eating like crap, I've not been accomplishing much. It's been my own fault. Like, I'm not like, feel sorry for me because those donuts were my choice. Not a good choice, but they were tasty. I won't be doing that again anytime soon. But yeah, it's like, yes, it really does affect how much I can accomplish by how well I've been eating. Daniel said, please let us know when Durant will release that film of you and your work. I would love to see it. I love Durant products and you are extremely talented and a joy to watch. Thank you. That was so nice. Laura said, I understand the diet thing. I'm not finishing that sentence, it looks like. It ended. I think you hit enter too soon. I'll look and see if I can find the rest of that later. MM Fine Art Studio said, I'm 32 and I'm stage 3 kidney failure. Oh no. I just switched to a renal diet. I pitched a little fit, absolutely not being able to eat salt. But you are right, got to make those choices for health. And what the funny thing is, a lot of the things, like once I start eating like strict, staying healthy, it's not hard. You lose the cravings for the stuff you can't have and you find the alternatives. But man, when you first switch over, like, I definitely struggle. This is at the struggle stage for sure for me. Obviously, I keep cheating and ate a freaking box of donuts. I'm healthy. Clark Fine Art said, I love how the clumps and clusters you were doing starting to see the shapes of the dog already. Yes, okay. And so another quick tip, because I haven't talked a whole lot about painting fur other than actually doing it. What I do when I make my brush stroke, I start by not pushing hard. I push harder in the middle of the stroke and then lift away from the canvas at the end. That way my start and stop points are very, very soft and they just kind of fade out instead of, I don't want to do it on this. Let's do it on, oh, hold on. Make sure this text is not. Hold on, my husband is texting me. Let me make sure it's not important. He knows I'm live streaming. That's not important. I don't know why he's texting me right now. He's bugging me about getting our taxes done. What he doesn't seem to understand is I need like a week of prep work to get my side for the business of those taxes ready. He seems to think that I can just go tomorrow. That's not how it works. Let's see. Stacy, oh, wow, Stacy commented. Gosh, that Stacy chick sounds like a saint. I mean, she was nicer in the beginning. All these years later, she's kind of crazy. She flips me off when I share pictures of my pretty blooming orchids. Let's see. Scrolling back up. I lost it after talking crap about Stacy. It just kind of makes me laugh because she never comments on the live streams. Laura said, I understand the diet thing. I'm allergic to gluten. Yep, I've got celiac disease. I can't do that either. And I hate cooking and have to eat what feels like all the time. P.S. Eating should not feel like a chore. I agree. Daniel said, Daniel's having a hard time asking a question. I'm sorry to Stephanie. I'm not seeing your question. If it doesn't highlight in the Lachri Fine Art, I won't see it. I'm not trying to ignore you. You figured it out. Never mind. We'll come to that. You're up in a second. Jinxie Clark said, can you do an oil painting on sanded paper? I don't know why you would. I can't think of any possible benefit to doing that. Sanded paper is very expensive for the good, well, for Lux Archival for the good stuff, which is definitely my preference now. I can't see a single benefit of doing it on that versus a canvas. Would not be my choice. I prefer a smooth, because the way I paint, I want a smooth canvas for how I want the paint to glide. That seems kind of like it'd be a pain. Stephanie said, there we go. Hi, Lisa. Is there a way to see the picture of the reference photo to see what you are trying to paint and how you are following the fur? No, but you can see if you go to my Instagram where I posted the, I'm live streaming tonight, and the link to Instagram is in the description. You can see his photo in the little lower corner there. I don't have it on this computer, so I can't share it with you guys. It's on a different computer, and I never bothered to link all of or network my computers. I really need to do that. Susan said, rule of thumb with any project, always overestimate then under. If you bring it in under the time frame, you're a genius. If you bring it in after, not happiness. Exactly. Yep. Thanks, Shawanda. I can't. Auroria. So I already can't say any words or names or anything. You guys are used to that. And then the writing on this is so tiny and I can't be. So yeah, and I'm blind. So I apologize. Wanted to ask if you paint form and light. Wanted to learn how to break light down on a complex form. Curious how your advice on breaking down the process. I don't think necessarily in terms of that. What I do is I look at my subject and I think in terms of values. What's light, what's dark. I'm not sure if that's the same, probably not. So like with art, I mean, you can teach yourself to view it in a different way, but all of us are going to find methods that just our brain links with and sees it in a certain way that makes sense and works for us. And so for me, all I'm doing is looking at the shapes, shadows, lights, and darks. I'm not like looking and breaking it down based on form and light, I guess, or maybe I'm just playing word games and it's the same. I have no idea. Daniel says, sorry, Lisa, I meant family members for the 3 rules. Oh, yes, family members, absolutely. Yeah, I don't like charging family members anyway. I don't even do trades for family members. It's like either I'm going to give it to you for free for paintings, or my mom is the only one who can ask for something like for free and I'll give that to her. She always wants the stuff I want to keep though. lately I've just been telling her she has enough paint. She has no more room on her walls. But actually, she wants me to paint a horse coming up for one of the rooms in their house that they actually do have room for now, an add-on. So I may do that sometime in the near future. That one will be either oil over acrylic or just acrylic. So it'll make for a good art lesson. But yeah, besides that, no. Bianca said, hey Lisa, I'm new to selling art. I'm used to drawing for myself and gifts. Do you recommend setting up an online shop over commissions? Sorry if it's been a repeated question. Absolutely. Set up a website. Don't set up Etsy. I mean, you can set up Etsy, but don't just depend on Etsy or social media. A lot of people think social media is your website. It is not. You do not own Facebook. You do not own any of that. And so when they randomly change their algorithm so that only like 2% of people who followed your page will ever see your posts, you're kind of screwed. You want a website that you control. So set up your own. You can do free ones, Wix, Weebly. They have free options. I recommend doing a paid one. You can do like a WordPress site. The site like I have, you can do a version because you're probably not going to have too much traffic in the beginning. So it might cost you like $8 a month for a really nice, like that's for a WordPress site. Or again, Wix, Weebly, you can do with those websites, you can make really nice looking sites. And those ones are really easy to work on too. Set up your own website. Absolutely. Also, you can advertise on eBay and Etsy and stuff like that too. And of course, social media, you want to send people over your website. But yes, absolutely have your own site. I cannot recommend it enough. Oh, and that scrolled too far. Scrolling back up. Denise said, you've said that you used to have a problem rushing your art. I have the opposite problem. Any tips on working faster without rushing? I struggle with perfectionism. I don't focus on time. I try not to focus on time. Okay, well, no, that's not true. So it wasn't initially when I talk about my work, I wasn't putting enough time into it. It wasn't because I was rushing. It was because that's just how much time I thought I needed to accomplish what I needed. It didn't cross my mind to spend more. So I've never felt like I was rushing. When I talk about that I started spending more time on the work, when I suddenly, instead of spending 45 minutes on a graphite piece, 8 hours, and now it went from looking like a pencil sketch to a black and white photograph, that wasn't because I was rushing the pencil sketch. That's just how much time I thought I needed to accomplish what I was trying to accomplish. And then when I realized I want it to look more realistic, it was like, well, let's multiply this time by like 9 or 10 and see what happens. So it was never for me about rushing. But talking about how to work faster, see, I've never considered time that much other than I know this is how long this generally takes me to complete. But if it takes you a long time, it takes you a long time. That's not uncommon, depending on what it is you're spending the time on. That's a hard one. There's like so many factors that would change my answer. If you're fussing over something like, oh, I made that brush stroke and I don't like it, I'm going to do it again. No, I still don't like it. I'm going to do it again. No, I still don't. I need 20 brush strokes later, or 3 hours later, it still looks the same. Okay, move on. Leave it alone. Move on. It's probably not that important. So that would be one answer. The other would be, well, what are you trying to do? How long is it taking you to finish something? I mean, are we talking about 6 months or are we talking about 3 weeks? 3 weeks is reasonable depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But sometimes you do just need to leave it alone and move on. Is the time you're spending on it making any difference? Or are you fussing over one brush stroke and it looks the same? No one's going to notice a difference. One thing you can do if you do feel like it's just that you're fussing over things, do time yourself. Give yourself little timed sketches. I'm going to spend 10 minutes sketching on this. Yay, grammar. I'm going to spend 10 minutes working on this one. Or this has to be done in 2 hours. I want this done in 2 hours. And see what you can accomplish, because it's going to force you to stop. You're not going to be able to fuss over things that don't matter so much. And I'm not saying those should be always your finished projects or you should always work that fast, but it may be a way that you can kind of break out of fussing over things that you realize later on really weren't that big of a deal or worth spending hours when it made no difference. So that might help you. Stacy said, what airbrush system do you recommend without having to sell my sheet to Paul? Don't sell Paul. The one that I use is Grex. I also like Iwata. Now, here's the thing with airbrushes. Don't waste your money on something like, oh, I found an airbrush setup and it was $70. You just threw $70 away. You would have been better off saving that $70 and continuing saving for the next 6 months or however long it takes you to buy the proper setup that you know is going to last. So that is a big deal. I need to update the airbrush that I'm using on my website. I think it still has the Iwata and the Stormforce air compressor, which are also great. Totally fine. Lately I've been using my Grex and I really like it. But I would rather you save longer and get quality. So what happens with a lot of the airbrushes, people will leave good reviews on some of these really crappy ones, and it's because they used it twice, and in those 2 times they're like, wow, this works great, I'm gonna go leave a review on this right now. Well, what they don't generally do is update you 5 months down the road to tell you, oh yeah, I only got 2-3 uses out of it and it broke. A lot of those cheaper ones do not last very long at all. It's not even worth spending the money on. So I would much rather see you save the money and get the better thing. Don't sell Paul, but save and get a better system. And the ones that I've used that I really like were Grex and Iwata, but you may too join some airbrushing groups on like Facebook or something like that and see what other people are recommending. I use my airbrush primarily for special effects, like getting the bokeh effect or different things like that when I airbrush my background on colored pencil. But see what other people recommend, because that isn't to say that there aren't cheaper alternatives to Grex. I'm happy with that in Iwata. There may be cheaper alternatives that aren't the really crappy ones I'm talking about. I just don't know what they are. I've not tried all of them. But what I have seen when students would bring in things, they were so excited. Look, I found this and it was such a great deal on eBay. Yeah, that lasted you 2 uses and now you're at $70. Good choice. So yeah, don't sell Paul, but maybe save a bit longer and get the better stuff. I think for this setup, Nick bought the same setup and I want to say it was just under 500, right around there. So it's not inexpensive, but it's worth saving for and getting something that's going, you know, is going to work. And that, I think that may have included paint. Like it wasn't just the airbrush. He got a lot of other stuff with it, if I remember. Nick can let us know. Let's see. Clark said you were showing or going to show us how you do first strokes before the text. Oh, well, I think I did. It was just that, and this brush is dry now, or, you know, I'm just going to put water on it. So what I do, barely push harder, lift up, and you get this nice start and stop point. But yeah, I think that was about, I mean, I've got most of the shadows, and I guess I can start putting some of the highlights while we chat. Let's start getting some, I'm just going to use some straight unbleached titanium white. What question was next? Down in the farm studio said, you lose the cravings, lucky you. I would love some taters, peas, pizza, bread, apples, orange juice. I get food cravings all the time. My allergies are extreme and limiting. I found once I made it, no, sugar was the hardest. The last time I went over a year with no sugar at all, other than eating actual like apples or occasionally grapes, but not like no refined sugar, no sweeteners, not even honey, nothing. And that was hard. Oops, that's too thick. That was really hard to get used to. I had sugar cravings for a really long time. Like 6 weeks, it was hard. But when I've gone like cold turkey, completely cut something out, those cravings really did go away. But as soon as I start cheating again, oh, they're back with a vengeance. Moody Round Studio said, I know that you said you use Liquitex gesso, but is the super heavy or other? It was just Liquitex gesso. It didn't say anything. It was a blue label, if that helps. Well, and now scroll too far. Hold on 1 second. I really wish this didn't do that. And it scrolled again. There we go. Those expressive eyes, the eyes of dogs and the way their tails get me every time. This painting of yours, heart. Thank you. Anne-Marie said, you shared some pictures of orchids. May I use them to practice paintings and not to sell? Absolutely. And for those on Patreon, actually, I've got to get, that's the other thing I have to do tomorrow. Your Patreon reference photos for February, I've got two orchids, 2 with roses, and then some more of the camels and llamas from the last photo session I did. So we'll get some more farm animals in there. Those I've got to get up for you, but there are some flowers coming. I got some beautiful shots of, one of them especially I'm going to be painting, of the orchid, because I've had a lot of requests to make a video showing you guys how to keep orchids alive. So I figured I would make it fit in with my art channel and draw the orchid while showing you how to repot and how to, all the orchid things. So that is coming really, really soon, but I'm excited. I can't wait to share those photos with you guys, because some of those came out. One especially is just, I can't wait to paint myself. It's so pretty. Okay. Christy said, I heard you recommend the blue snowball mic once. I have that. And I have to have my mouth 1 inch from the mic for it to work properly. Did you have that problem? I did not at all. Like, I'm pretty far away from my mic. I didn't have that at all. That one might, I'm wondering if it's defective. Or one of the things, so this is probably not what's happening to you. Back when I used to do the podcast, I started with that blue snowball mic and it was good. Everything was going really well with it. And then it just, my audio started sounding terrible. And I kept messing with that mic, messing with it. I could never, I'm like, wow, I'm going to have to get a new one. I almost ordered a new one. At some point, my computer reset and it was using the mic from a webcam that had fallen behind the computer because I never used it. It was like back there, that mic, and not even coming through the proper mic. So double check that you're not having that happen. I felt pretty dumb because that was months of crappy audio. I mean, there were several. It wasn't good. A lot of this is going to be more solid, but we'll kind of keep some of the brush strokes in a little bit. Clark said, does your compressor also have a small tank with it? A small tank? I mean, I don't know what you mean with tank. It's just a little air compressor. You can see what I have. It's the Grex one. If you go to Amazon, it may be linked in the video description, but if you go there, you can see what that compressor will look like. I'm not sure what you mean by small tank. I mean, it is a small tank, I guess. Janae said, it takes me months for something small, like an 8x10, working on 10 to 14 hours a week. Thank you for the helpful tips. Yeah, that's a long time. I mean, maybe it's worth it. And it depends on what your goals are. Are you trying to sell, get your name out there? Then that is you need to figure out how to not fuss too much over some of that stuff. That makes me think that you're probably spending more time than you need to on some of those brush or pencil strokes. But, because that's not terribly huge. So yeah, the timing yourself might be a way to get yourself over that. And not scroll too far. Okay. Where were we? Ursi said a lot of gold cream color would look good on this dog painting. Yep, that is what I'm using. Meek said, with the coronavirus, how does that affect marketing one's wares? I mean, no more than, I don't want to get too much into that. And actually, I shouldn't have just said that out loud because I know YouTube's demonetizing people who even talk about it. For some reason, I don't even know, but right now, nothing. I mean, whenever you talk about a lot of illnesses, as bad as it may be, it's not forever. It would be fairly temporary. So I don't know that that's something I would even, like, when it comes to this, it's not something I even consider at this point. Whether or not it ends up being an issue, I don't know. But thank you for getting my video demonetized. I should not have said those words before I thought about that. Maybe I talk fast enough, YouTube won't pick up on what I said. I mean, because you're not talking about a situation where this is life moving forward from now on. This is not the zombie virus. Like, this isn't something that now forever, this is what the world deals with. I'm not saying it won't suck, but it's not forever. It's not, it may suck for a bit, but it should pass too with, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert though. I am not. Devin Farm Studio said, I was never into sugar stuff really, other than fruits. I haven't had mashed potatoes for umpteen years. Still wants, mashed potatoes. That is one of my absolute, favorite things in the history of things. If I could just live off mashed potatoes, I absolutely would. Stupid carbs. Although, hey, are you able to do the cauliflower, faux potatoes? Because those are pretty good. Those have really grown on me. Of course, those usually have cream cheese and stuff. So I think you said dairy you weren't doing either. I forget. It definitely takes dairy to make that taste good. Let's see. I'm just getting started painting with acrylics after this. What should I watch? There's a video if you do, I think I titled it Intro to Acrylics. It's of a fish, and that's like a super basic step-by-step, the way that I layer the paint. That one I think is super helpful. It's a really good place to start. So that one would probably be good. But really anywhere. One of the biggest tips I can give you when you're learning to paint, don't limit yourself to stuff for the beginners. So you're a beginner now, go ahead and do a few beginner paintings just to get a feel for it, and then jump into things that are very advanced. Will your stuff look as good as the advanced artist? No. That's fine, but that's how you're going to get to that stage. One of the problems that a lot of people have is that they think I'm a beginner, so I need to follow beginner tutorials. If you continuously follow beginner tutorials, you will forever be a beginner. You are not going to improve. They do not stick to stuff for beginners. I mean, I've got a couple of beginner videos. It's fine. Go ahead and start with that, but don't stick with that. Jump into stuff that seems like you look at it and you go, oh, that's too hard. Yeah, but that's how you learn. Yeah, your work may not look as good as the finished painting, but you're going to get there if you're setting those sights higher. A lot of people will go, I'm still a beginner, so I'll paint something that's beginner. You will never get past that. Your stuff never has the option to get better than the beginner thing you're working with. So one of the examples that I've used, and I always get people mad at me because never talk badly about our Lord and Savior, Bob Ross, I guess. I don't know. That seems to be how people act about it. But Bob Ross is for beginners. Now, I'm not bashing him. I love Bob Ross. He has done so much to get people started in art. However, if you stick with tutorials forever from Bob Ross, you are never going to improve. So start with let's say if you like Bob Ross, I'm just using him as an example. Then jump to someone very, very advanced. Look at stuff that James Gurney does, or I'm trying to think of just people. Anybody who's very advanced, and start going on after that. That is what's going to move you past being a beginner, because whatever you're doing, so let's say here's Bob Ross level. Your painting is going to not be quite as good as Bob Ross. You'll be right about here. Let's say you go up a little bit higher to copying somebody who's much more advanced. Yours is not going to be as good as the advanced person, but look how much higher it is than the Bob Ross. Like your technique and everything, you're going to learn more. Things are going to be better. Do not limit yourself to stuff for beginners is like the biggest thing that will make a huge difference in your work progressing and getting better. Let's see. Next we have Ocean Blue said, when we paint in oils, when we use the liquid, is it safe to use a hairdryer after a few hours later to dry the oils on canvas, or let the liquid be on its own? Let it be. Do not use heat next to your flammable oil paints, please. I don't want you to burn down your house. And it doesn't work. Just let it air. Liquid dries in like overnight. There's no, unless you're painting super thick, but there's no reason to use a hairdryer for it, but it's not really going to work that well anyway. Oil paint more cures than dries. It's a little bit of a different way to go, although liquid does make it kind of dry. So science, not going to go into all of that, but no, let it set, let it dry on its own. And do not use heat near flammable products. That's a bad idea. Let's see. And not scroll too far. There we go. Ursi said, maybe add some burnt umber with raw sienna for contrast to start. You are way ahead of me. You're like 2 days ahead of where I am on this painting, Ursi's. I will get there. Kirsty said, I'm off. I have to go for lunch. Thanks for the chat. Have a good lunch, Kirsty. I'm jealous. Jealous? I'm hungry. Talking about all this food. I want that box of donuts I already ate. No more donuts for me. Down the Farm Studio said, when I eat taters, I eat taters. When I eat cauliflower, I eat cauliflower. They don't taste the same. See, when it goes so long, it starts to seem the same to me. Like when I did gluten-free for so long, I would tell my husband, like, oh, it tastes just like the real thing. He's like, no, it doesn't. I'm like, but it does. He's like, no, it doesn't. I haven't had the real thing I haven't had it in so long. I'm good with it. There we go. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to jump up here and get some of the highlights on his head. Now I'll have to come back through with actual titanium white and really brighten some of this up, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going with the unbleached titanium white, and even this I'll end up glazing to tone down a bit so that my brightest highlights, oops, that's too much water, will show up. If I start with titanium white, even though part of this would be that color, I can't go brighter. I can't really blend in I can't get highlights from that. So we're just going to use unbleached titanium white for this. Soften his poof. This water is absorbing. Oh yeah, that brush isn't working. It's absorbing way more water than it should have in it. We'll just switch. That's better. I think I used that brush on oils, and I think the bristles are like not behaving properly. It'd be a while ago. It's dry, but it's like super weirdly stiff. which makes me think at some point I probably used it with oil paint and it's just messed up now. Oh, I forgot about my coffee. That has too much water. There we go. So when it has too much water, I just dab it on a paper towel to let some of the water soak in, and it leaves still a lot of paint on the brush. And this whole section will be in shadow, but just to get the light and dark mapped out, I'm going to go ahead and do it in unbleached titanium right now, even though this is way too bright. I'll end up glazing violets and make Ursi's happy on another day and add some of those other colors in there. Miriam said, did you buy the small lime green orchid yet? I have not. I actually I haven't seen any in forever. I stopped buying orchids at my last apartment because I ran out of room, but I've got a little bit more room. I could put some in my studio. I had a really hard time even finding the orchid to use for the video. I'm really happy with the one I got. Well, so far we'll see. It's being quarantined away from my other orchids right now. We'll see how I feel about that later. But I really think the flowers are very, very pretty, but it's looking for one. I had a really hard time finding on most of the orchids that I saw either had petal blight, and I suspect it's from the temperature. Like where I was looking was a garden center that would have been very, very cold. Between that and the humidity from the rain we'd had, it made sense that it had petal blight, but I don't know for certain it's that and not some sort of parasite, so I'm not bringing that into my home. Or the root rot, or like, it was just crazy. Or some of them that I just saw too, because of Valentine's Day, they were charging like double what that no ID orchid would be worth. So I was not paying for that either. I mean, I guess if I liked the orchid enough, I would have, but I've not been seeing very good variety and very good quality lately. Chris said, a cheap airbrush will make you work so much harder. True of most art tools though. See, and Chris knows. Chris is much more advanced with his airbrush skills than I am. Actually, Chris can probably give you, Chris Dunlop, you can find him on Facebook or Instagram. He uses Pinstripe Chris as his username, and guy is phenomenal. But he may be a good person to ask too about the tools he uses. I bet he has way more experience than I do. Ocean Blue said that wall painting in the background, is it a painting of waves? It looks pretty. No, it's branches, kind of. It's, I painted my wall teal and gray and then kind of faded around with the edges and made branches like fade into it. So I need to post a photo of it sometime in the near future, but I don't think it's done yet. So that's why I haven't shared it with you guys yet. It's just been sitting while I decide if I want to change things about it. I need to hurry up and decide though what I know for sure I need to take. I know for sure one area I need to work on. I don't know. I honestly even contemplating gold leafing part of the branches and decided it would be annoying to try to paint over later. So I backed out of that idea. But I'm still working on ideas because I'm not, I love the edges. I'm not loving the part here that you can't see. It needs work. Beak said, my sincerest apologies. I forgot. What were we talking about? I totally forgot what the question was. I'm scrolling up because my memory is like this big. So that was too long ago. I don't even know what you're apologizing for. Jennifer from Studio said, do you ever just start painting without the sketch first? You know how I paint digitally. Is that an issue, working out basic shapes in base color rather than painting in line art? You can paint how, I mean, I don't generally, because I usually have things planned out, like what I want it to look like, and I've got reference photos that I'm going by. So I don't typically do that. I mean, I have, like when I was doing more kind of abstracty, just playing with things, loose gestures. That is not the term I'm looking for, but that's the end goal. I have done that before, but for how I like to paint, it's not usually what I go with. Usually when I try doing stuff like that, it comes out pretty terrible. Mia said, good morning from Sweden. It's 4:41 in the morning. You are up early. And yes, soon it's time for coffee. That dog looks good, Lisa. Thank you. That is way too early for me. I'll stay up that late. I'm not waking up that early though. I'm just softening this a little bit. It can still be harsh. Like I said earlier, I'm going to soften all of this with oil paint later. So I don't need it perfect. I just want to map most of this out. And then once I get the unbleached titanium white areas in here that I'm doing, I will come back through with the violets and with all of those other colors. And I will also come back through with a round and a liner brush. So one of the things you can see here, well, maybe, I don't know, it's overexposed. But there's all of the little individual brush strokes. That's what the rake brush will do for you. But on this breed, it's giving him a wiry coat, which is not, he needs to be softer. And that's why I'm softening it with another brush, but I'll also, when I go back over it with oil paint, that'll soften him up even more. And I'm just making sure that brush is moving in the right direction of the fur. Doesn't need, like I was saying before, it does not need to be perfect. Approximate is good enough at this point. And this whole area is overexposed, so it's very solid. You're not really going to see any definition in the fur there, so we're just going to soften those edges out. When I blend like this, I do not want to spend too much time blending the inside area, because what you'll do with the acrylics is push all of that wet paint to your outer edges and you end up with this horribly ugly ring. So I'm mostly focusing on just softening those edges. Gibson's getting way better with my routine. He's still passed out, like super passed out over there. This is working out nicely. If you're new and you're like, who is Gibson? What are you talking about? He's my greyhound who normally about half hour before we're done decides he's bored and has been coming up and bugging me to go out. But the last couple of live streams, he's been pretty good with staying down. Although my husband just got home, so that may ruin everything. Spoke too soon. He has bags. I hope there's food in those bags. I'm really hungry. This is your guys' fault for talking about food so much. Or was I the one talking about food? Renee said, will you end up posting a time lapse of this when it's done? Absolutely. Definitely. It'll probably be in a couple of weeks. There'll be part 1 of this will be on Patreon on Monday, and then part 2 the next week when I do the oil layer. Those bags I'm hearing could either be comics or they could be food. It could go either way. I'm gonna be super disappointed if it's just comics. It's Wednesday, it's comic book day. Now here, I'm only using 2 colors right now to build up the fur. Never leave it like this. This is like one of those go and drink while you paint at those party places. This is not how you would want to leave it. This is nothing more than me mapping out the fur. And it'll take a lot of color. So one of the things when you're painting white fur, it's never just white. And no matter what it is, it could be a white rose, white anything. It's never just white. It's going to pick up a lot of other colors around it and really focus on the shadows. The shadows, you'll usually use a lot of violets, blues, these deeper colors. You don't want to just leave things, well, this is very flat right now. It looks like something painted at one of the, I got drunk and tried to make a painting places. Renee said, yay, but for Patreon only. Well, Patreon will be first, like always, and then you will get the one on YouTube will be like usually a week or two after, depending on if I edited it that week. This last week I did not. Massive failure. He has the cutest floofy face. Now here, because I've gotten the canvas so smooth, I can essentially dry brush and it doesn't even look like I'm dry brushing. Renee said, okay, got that one. Ursi said, have you tried Ritz chips? They taste good for a side. Ritz are not gluten-free. I don't think they make anything that's gluten-free. I don't want to feel like I'm going to die for 2 weeks. So no, that will not happen. Also, carbs. Somebody's moving around. Lay down. Good boy. Renee says, oh good, I can cultivate patience. Yeah, I mean, I've got to finish it first and it won't be done for it takes me about 2 weeks to do an oil over acrylic just because the dry time once I start in with oils. So after that, I've got to, it'll be after that. Lindsay said, I just joined. Is this a commission? I remember you used to do pet portraits a while back. Do you take commissions now? The eyes look amazing. Thank you. And no, I don't really take commissions anymore with rare exceptions. Usually for like art companies, like I've done stuff for Derwent or Faber-Castell, but I don't normally do commissions anymore because the time it takes to work with a client and, you know, choose your background and make sure everybody's happy with everything. In this case though, this was a trade with my neighbor for shiplap walls. She's got 2 black ones and Winston and Arlo, and then Cooper, who's like a golden color. So those guys I'll be painting as well. So we've got lots of coat types. And it's cool because Arlo and Winston are both black, but they've got completely different coat texture types. So I think that's going to make for a really good lesson, you know, talking about creating the different fur texture, even though they're the same color. So that, I'm looking forward to painting them. And those guys, I get to take the reference photo myself. So that's even better. But no, so I mean, I guess you could kind of call it a commission and trade for shiplap. Carla said, I had my first commission for an Airedale. I have not started because I'm scared I will mess up. Did you have that when you first started? No, because you need to get in your head, no matter what you can do, you can fix. And that's what I've always told my students too. There is nothing you can do to this I can't fix. Hopefully by the time you're taking commissions, you've learned how to fix those things, so you can't mess it up. I mean, just layer until it looks right. Keep messing with it till it looks right. You should be able to do this. I mean, if somebody hired you to do the commission, I'm assuming they've seen your work already that they liked. Keep that in mind. They like your work. I think we have a tendency for some reason to expect the commission to be better than our normal work. No, they hired you because they like your work. The commission needs to be as good as what you've produced in the past. It doesn't have to be better than. So that can take some of the pressure off too. It doesn't, and I don't know why we do that to ourselves where we kind of think like, okay, it's a commission, it has to be even better. No, that's not what they're asking. They're asking for your work, which you already know how to do. So you should be good. But no, I never really had the fear of painting. I think part because I taught myself, this was before YouTube, so I couldn't really get in my own head of, like I didn't see a lot of what other people were creating. Whatever I was creating was good for my standard. So that probably made it a little bit, or took a little bit of the pressure off when I first started. But by the time I started taking commissions, I knew what to expect. I knew that you were going to have ugly stages. And here, my huge tip for you, no matter what I paint, I'm going to hit a stage where it's super ugly and I look at it and go, I don't know if I can pull this off. This is terrible. Every single time. And every single time, with rare exception, I pull it off. You have to get over the fear of, like, and it's normal to fear that, but you have to get over, like, what sometimes people will give up and be like, oh, it's terrible, it's ugly, I need to start over. You never move, you never progress when you do that. What you want to do is force yourself to finish everything, and you'll kind of get into learning that it's, my brain just shut down again. There seems to be a pattern there. You'll get over that fear of this looks bad, I can't make it good. You need to teach yourself you can always make it look good, and you're only going to do that by continuing to work on things and progressing that way. So he's still just working on these little curls. And this, as ugly as this stage is, it's going to make my life so much easier when I go through and start working on the values and the things that make it look good. This is which is funny because this is what I would definitely consider an ugly stage, but it's going to make it easier when I get to the stuff that everything starts looking good. And his fur keeps switching directions. This is why you want to keep looking at that reference. And one of the things that people will do, they'll make a couple brush strokes and go, it looks just like his fur, it's perfect. And they just keep making that same brush stroke everywhere. Well, now it looks like confetti. Good job. We don't want confetti. Pay attention to the reference photo. Where does that fur switch directions? How long should each brush stroke be? And say that brush stroke. Why does I always feel like I start slurring when I say that, but pay attention to how long each of those brush strokes should be, how big each clump and cluster should be, and which direction the fur is turning in. Thanks, Xerxes. I am not pushing very hard with this brush. With the rake brushes, if you just barely push, that makes the rake work better where you can see all the little strands of fur. If I want it, don't want to see as many strands, just push a little bit harder. Maya said, I was just watching chickens sing and dance on your IG profile. That always makes me smile. He was going crazy with that earlier today. That bird was singing and making up his own little songs. It was pretty funny. I should have recorded it. He was making like, yeah, he was all wound up earlier. Now watch when you're painting the clumps and clusters of fur. Don't think of it as curls where you're just making little loop-de-loos. That's not going to look like curls. That looks like a child having fun with a pencil. Pay attention to the way the fur clumps and clusters together. And so these, while they're harsh now, when I start glazing over it, it will tone these down. They won't be, he'll look softer. I really want to work on his beard, but I really need to also just wait until I do his mouth, which I'm probably going to do off the live stream later. I'm on a roll. I want to get a lot of this done. It makes me want to work faster too. It's kind of a funny thing. One of the things with trades, so I was asked not to start this until more of the shiplap got finished because he thought he would get it was going to take longer to get started. And I really wanted to start. He's like, no, just wait. Find something else to paint. I'm like, okay, fine. So I waited. The canvas has just been sitting in my office. And then he started. I'm like, I could have had this done by now. So, but now that the shiplap on my wall is mostly done, it makes me want to like not be lazy and hurry up and get, like not rush. There's a difference there, but get like, spend more time working. I really, every time I walk by the shiplap now, especially, which looks so pretty, I stop and pet it because I'm a crazy person and think I need to hurry up and get my part of that trade done. Normally when I do trades with people, I like to have my section done before they, like first. So this is kind of driving me crazy that mine's not yet. But it's kind of fun because it makes me more inspired, I guess, to spend more time painting. Monica said, this makes me want to paint my cats. Only problem is I don't have a canvas to paint it traditionally. Get a canvas. Why don't you have a canvas? You should get one. It's funny. Going back to canvases years ago, I only used to buy canvases as I needed, and occasionally I would get a few extras if they were on sale, but I didn't have the money to buy, like, stock up. And one day I was painting, or I was trying to remove there was a weird stretcher bar. I was trying to do something. I put a hole through the canvas, but I wanted to paint that night so bad, and I wasn't going to get to the store till like 2 days later. And I'm like, screw it. I'm just painting, even though there's a hole in this canvas. After that, I started hoarding canvases. So that never happened to me again. I always have whatever size I could possibly want. I probably have. That night sucked. I still have that painting though. I can't sell it because it has a hole in it. Diane said, how do you keep your place? I always lose where I'm at, which curl I'm on. I jump around so much, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't have to keep one place. Now, once I get to where I start doing the detail, I'll work on like one ear, this section here, then this section, like I'll work one area at a time. But right now I'm just jumping around getting the general, like I'm not keeping my place at all. Maya said, what color is this dog's undercoat? Will the blue-gray still show through, or will it be shades of gray by the time you're done? Yes, some of the blue-gray is going to show through. In the photo, it was a wedding photo, so you've got these more neutral, like tans and white and cream colors in that. Well, this is not the background we went with, so I've got to pull those colors into him, and a lot of this will be done by glazing later on. I'll be correcting a lot of these colors later. It will certainly not stay like this. Like right now, the areas that are gold are the areas that are going to be in shadow. But those areas really need to be more violet than the gold I have now. It was just a quick, like, I'm going to block that in first. Yeah, I just look at my reference photo, pick a curl, and paint that one. Get a chunk of paint on there. Get off. There. So, okay, we are 10 o'clock. I'm going to go find out if I have comics for dinner or actually food after I wash this brush. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. Next week we'll probably be working in oils unless I super rush through and I finish it by then. I don't think I will. But next week will probably be oils. Really soon we're going to be doing a critique video, or well, I'll be critiquing your work. I will be accepting those critiques from our MeWe account, so make sure to sign up if you're not already in our group over there. And yeah, that's it. Oh, and I should have mentioned this earlier. Check out Nick and Joseph, our moderators for tonight. Their links to their channel is in the video description. Go subscribe to them. They have really cool stuff. And tell them thank you because they help so much. And yeah, we are done for the evening. I will probably post an update to this on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, somewhere, once I get the acrylic underpainting done. And then again, once the whole painting is done, I probably won't have many updates in between besides underpainting and finished painting being done. And thank you so much for joining me. I will see you guys next week. Well, and on Instagram in the meantime. Bye.